Be authentically you. 'Cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world? Be authentically you. 'Cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world?
Welcome to another Authentically You imprint. Here on the Imprint Show, we find people in your communities, in your neighborhoods, in your families, on your jobs, people who are right in your very homes that are out there doing some fantastic, marvelous things, and we shine the spotlight on them.
Right.
Listen, sometimes, Channel 5, Channel 9, CNN won't pick up stories that we know that the world needs to know about. And that is what we do. And we have a gentleman with us today, Mr. Paul Jones, that we want to bring on. He is doing some fantastic things.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Paul Jones.
Not only doing
Thank you.
Not only doing fantastic things, doing unique things, setting precedent for the country.
Yes.
And again, we just passed Juneteenth week.
Yeah.
Where we made the national holiday, and we had a guest on then for that. So this is the following week, and I need to stop a minute. Forgive me, Paul, but my old lady, my beautiful old lady, just had a birthday. My beautiful young lady just had a birthday this past week.
Thank you.
When she turned 60 years old, and we went through the week doing some great things, some milestone things. She's running me to death, but nevertheless, long as she's enjoying it,
we are fulfilling dreams.
We are fulfilling dreams. No time for wasting. Listen, while you there, hit happy birthday to her. This is a big one. This is 60. God didn't.
Right.
Listen, the devil did not intend for her to make
exactly
it
right.
at 60. Some years ago, she had a heart issue that almost took her out. Wound up having to have emergency heart surgery. Scared me to death. I thought I was going to lose my baby, but here we are. Here we are.
Right.
Still thriving
Doing well.
hitting that 60-year mark, and it is great. It is wonderful.
Absolutely.
And we get to live out our dream by doing things just like this.
Just like this.
Interviewing people who are changing the world. Not just changing their community, but changing the world, setting the example for the world.
Yes.
And what he's doing, when I got to let him tell y'all what it is he's doing, but he's changing the world in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Our nation's capital, the beautiful place that everybody knows because of our monument, because of our Capitol, and because of our White House. All that stuff is beautiful. But underneath the surface, there are things that have been happening. There's still been unfairness and inequality in our neighborhoods for our poor community, our Black community, that did not come to light. More of it came to light in COVID. It's been done in the secret, but now people are realizing that there must be something done about it. The mayors, the council people in the District of Columbia are coming together, not because they wanted to necessarily, but because people in the community that came from the community and have returned to the community say, no, we're not going to let our next generation go through this. No, we're going to do something different. We're going to show you what can be done if you give us the opportunity. And these people did not stop until the opportunity came, and they're making it work.
That's right.
I got to tell you, they're making it work. Welcome, Paul Jones.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me here.
It's our pleasure.
It is our pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Listen. I want you to tell the people, I gave them just a little bit of background, but man, they don't even know the half.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Tell us about
so my name is Paul Jones. I'm a native Washingtonian, born and raised in Washington, D.C. Most of my life I lived in Northwest Washington. I've worked over about 21 years in the social services field. Right now, I am the board chair and CEO of the Columbia Heights Village Tenant Association. Columbia Heights Village is a property located in the heart of Washington, D.C. in Columbia Heights. Our property consists of 31 buildings, approximately 980 residents in
Wow.
a 3-block radius
Wow, that's
in,
pretty phenomenal.
in the heart of Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes us so unique, at the end of 2018, the last day of 2018, our property was sold for roughly around $99 million.
Wow.
In that purchase, the Columbia Heights Village Tenant Association was able to acquire 25% of the ownership of that property. So that makes us the only property right now in the United States where the tenant association owns a large part of equity of that size. So I think that's something that we should always talk about and celebrate.
That is phenomenal.
Thank you. And try to get more developments to gain this piece of leverage in their own community to create programs that we know that our residents need.
Right.
And that's what we've been doing since the 12th. I came in office January 12th, 2019. And we've been running strong ever since.
Wow.
That
Really, that's beautiful.
You know, that's great. Let's as we talked earlier, we're in 175 countries around the world. Almost everybody around the world know Washington, D.C. For one reason or another, but they don't know the plight in the area that you're talking about. Now, what we have to bring to the light on this is when he say that the tenants own 25%, people are shaking their heads, but you didn't hear the figure of a $99 million property. But that's not all. That's not all to it. That's not what makes it so huge. What makes this huge is that it's in an area that's being gentrified from gentrification, and that what used to be all black is now turning into, it's always been prime property, but it's now turning into prime property for other cultures and other races outside of black. And if this had not happened, then the tenants that have been there for all them years would have been placed out, and those places that they're in now would have been sold for millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars each for the community that it's in. It was a community park road. I'm very familiar with it. I grew up coming to that area, to church in that area, hanging out in that area, and it wasn't an area that you can walk in at one point. It wasn't an area that you can just stroll in. It wasn't happening because of the violence, because of all the things that was going on. But I got to tell you now, they obtained this after they had placed the Target there, after they had placed all the shops there, intending to gentrify that area and exclude blacks from that area and the people that grew up in that area. So what he's saying to you is that what they have accomplished is not short of a miracle.
Right.
It is not short of a miracle. You got to understand the economics, especially when it comes down to the black community. Economics show the inequity in everything, and it has across the country. But this is an example that is done nowhere else in the country, where the tenants raise their voices, where the tenants say, we got to do something different. You can't just come in our community and push us out of this community. We're not against you growing, but we're against you kicking us out. And this man, Paul, and our good friend Cindy, who did the show before on this, have stepped in and is guiding this thing like crazy. I mean, I am totally impressed, Paul, at what you guys are doing. It is phenomenal. Tell us a little bit more.
So before we get too far, though, I want you to talk about why this is so important to you. That you are a member of this community. You live in this community. You raised your family you were raised in this community, and now raising your family in this community. Talk to us about that.
Well, that's a great question. So I came, like I was telling you guys earlier, I came into this community when I was around 12 years old. And like Brother Andy said, this was way before it was gentrified. I used to refer to our city as sort of like a Gotham City type thing. And what I mean by that, it was always dark. There was always a lot of shadows. There was always pockets of people in the shadows. My first night that I moved here, my first night, I was robbed at gunpoint at 12 years old. My nephew and I going to get a sandwich from the store down, probably about 3 blocks down the street. I was robbed at gunpoint for a bite of my sandwich and a Discman at about $5.
Wow.
That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
So I grew up in this community, and I wasn't the person I was now. My mother, she was born in 1931, and my father was born in 1896. So there was a big age gap.
Yeah.
My father passed away when I was about 10. So my mother was left to raise me by herself. And she worked full time. And that, when you have one parent that works all the time, you don't have a big family, you tend to stray outside too much. So I strayed outside too much. I didn't do good things. I did some bad things, but what I was taught as a kid is to always be respectful. So if you saw me coming down the streets, you wouldn't say, there go Paul, that bad guy that's always causing ruckus. They would say, oh, there go Paul, Gene's son. He's very respectful. So I always been respectful no matter what I was doing. How I started this work is my oldest son, which is 20 now. So I remember I started 21 years ago. So when my son was on the way, I was on the way of making a transition into stop doing anything illegal. Because the way I looked at it is that in order for me to raise my son, I would need to be here.
Right.
And I knew if I continued down that path of committing crimes, there's a high possibility that I was either going to go to jail or I was going to be killed. So I had to do my best to remove those equations off the board. So I stopped doing anything illegal. And a lot of times people say, well, did you save a lot of money? Well, during that time, and just to put you guys in the right time preference, we're talking about during the crack era.
Right.
When we sold crack in those days, we didn't have an older person telling us that, okay, when you make this money, take this money and put it in stocks. Right. We didn't know anything about no stocks. We didn't know anything about small businesses. Yeah. We didn't know how to save. So that means every money that we made, we spent it because we knew in 3 more days we're going to get it back.
Yeah.
It was like guaranteed was going to come right back. So when I found out that my son was coming, I said I had to stop all this. And what I realized when I was doing what I was doing before I had kids, my male friends, whenever it came like holidays and such, you would see them break the law more just to get the Christmas presents and for the different holidays. And what it would do would increase their chances of getting incarcerated and or killed. And I've seen a lot of people get killed or incarcerated during these holiday seasons.
Right.
So when my son was coming, I said, you know what? I can't do this. I got to be on the straight and narrow. A gentleman that worked at a nonprofit that was on the property at that time, white gentleman by the name of John Brill. Nice guy, but he didn't have any type of really way of reaching the young African-American kids in the property. And he saw that I was good with them, so he asked me to come on. So I volunteered while my son's mother was pregnant, and I volunteered for about 2 or 3 months. He was like, Paul, we gotta get you a paycheck. You got this kid coming. We gotta get you a paycheck so you can make some money to help take care of your baby. So they created a position for me, outreach coordinator. I worked in the community, bringing kids in to smaller programs. As I grew in the nonprofit world, my son was born. I ended up working with the government, DC Parks and Rec, as a roving leader. And what a roving leader does, we were assigned to different quadrants of the city. And we would have 3 schools that we were responsible for: an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. And our job was to go to these schools and work with the more at-risk youth, getting them in programs, having workshops, field trips, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I did that for a few years, and then I went into another nonprofit realm where I was a community support worker, and then I gravitated to the fatherhood program where I ran the fatherhood program. And at the fatherhood program, I got so much enjoyment out of doing that, because what we find in the African American community is that us young African American males, we don't talk to too many people.
Correct.
Not really honest talk.
Correct.
We talk about sports and talk about girls and just talk about stuff that might not be true. But we'll never talk about our emotions. We'll never talk about our kids. It just always be fluff, and we had to put a certain stigma up of being rough. So during the fatherhood program, I was able to reach a lot of fathers, provide services for them, getting them mental health counseling, and it was just mind-boggling. So when fast forward, and I worked, so I found that there was great work, but when I worked in the government and when I worked in the nonprofit arena, I found that it was heavily dominated by females. They would say that they want males to come in and work, but when the male came in to work, and if the male wasn't showing some type of attraction to them or complimenting them on a regular basis, they'll get kind of ostracized. And I had a rule for a long time, forever, is that I don't fraternize with people I work with. Because when and if it go bad, that basically said my job is gonna go bad.
Right.
So I thought that was a good way to follow.
Philosophy, right?
Yeah, but that didn't work. I got ostracized because I was labeled as maybe antisocial. I'm like, no, I'm not antisocial. I'm not going, when I talk to you, I'm gonna look at you in your face.
Right.
I ain't gonna look down at your cleavage. I ain't gonna do no extra complimenting or telling you how fine you look and all that. I come to work to help the people, and that's my motivation, to help the people, and specifically the kids and the seniors. So it's been great.
Wow.
It's been great.
Listen, Paul, we're going to take a short break.
Yes, and we'll be
and
back.
we're going to be right back and pick up there, because I want to pick up on a couple of points that you said.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
What is it that inspires passion? That thing that keeps us from thinking that we know it all, but instead makes us say, I have to know more. What is it that makes us keep trying after we've fallen time and time again? It's the thing that makes us smile after we finally figured it out. When what used to be difficult is now second nature. It's the joy of knowing our hard work was not in vain, but instead has made us better as people. It's the beauty of learning.
Hey, welcome back. Here we are. We're back with Paul. Listen, Paul, you've been talking some great stuff. Let's do some placement. At the time that Paul's talking about, when he was growing up in Washington, D.C., Washington, D.C. was known as the murder capital of the United States. We had a lot of young black men dying in the crack era. That area up in there, Park Road and all that type of stuff, was one of the most devastating places there, and further down Leroy Park. I'm familiar with it because I was in law enforcement at the time. In Washington, D.C. It was crazy time for both law enforcement and for the black community. We were stuck. Black men was making money hand and fist because of the crack epidemic. People was losing their homes and stuff when crack became popular in the area. Good people were being destroyed by this drug. And it's amazing that in this community, someone who was involved in all that came to the light and said, I got to do something different. And it was because of his children, as he stated, that he really realized and focused, say, look, I got to get out of this. However, I got to get out of it, which brings us to a point, and we just going to make a point right here. Young men, take the opportunity that you have. You might not make as much money, but you will make a career. You will save your own life.
Yeah.
And life of your up and coming family and the things that God has for you. You'll miss out on it if you don't take good opportunities. And it's not always the fast money that's going to do it. Fast money will go fast. And then you will miss out on your life and your children and everything else. But fast forwarding in this era that he came up with, this was a rough community. As I say, you couldn't walk down the street at that time. If you wasn't known in the neighborhood, it wasn't no walking through. It was a point. It was a point where to orientate you, if you go maybe 8 blocks up, you're into the white community. You're into the upper part of Northwest where the big homes and stuff are. You just drove through coming out of Maryland and you're looking at all these fabulous homes, and all of a sudden you hit this part of DC where they definitely nice homes, but the people on the street are out there and the drugs are selling. And not only did the drugs sell, but this used to be a large area for prostitution and everything. And those of you who know Washington, D.C., 14th Street is a main strip that goes from the heart of the nation's capital all the way up to Maryland. So you can drive it that far, that particular street so far, and over the years it had transitioned from one to another, from one thing to another, one thing to another. That was a block that you would have to avoid at most times. Several blocks, the police will block it off and send you up 16th Street or you know up Sherman Avenue or another avenue because of the thing that was going on there. And it's a community that he pulled himself out of. And now, as you heard, he is the board chairman and the CEO of a place, that saved his life, that he moved to. And now he's back doing the same thing for young people who would have been lost and older people who would have been thrown out. This is the ultimate of giving back.
Saving a community, giving back.
So, Paul, you was telling us about working in the government and the issues that you were facing and how you got there. You go ahead and continue to tell us.
So you brought a great point in the Dodge City, the murder capital piece. So I don't know if a lot of people know, but Washington, D.C. used to stand, we called it Dodge City. And, you know, I drove Uber for a couple of years, and I would get the gentrifiers in the car, and they say, well, no, what was D.C. like during like the 80s and the 90s? And I said, well, have you ever watched a cowboy movie? And they said, yes. I said, D.C. was like a cowboy movie. I'm like, what do you mean by that? I said, if you walk down the street and you bumped into somebody, you had to grab for your gun first.
Right.
And have your hand on it for all the way out.
Yeah.
Before they pull theirs out.
Wow.
Because you could get shot for bumping into somebody.
Yeah.
If you walk down the street and somebody spoke to you that you ain't know, you reaching for your gun then. Because if somebody speaks to you that you don't know, they're about to try to rob.
Right.
And that's just how bad it was that time. So, you know, people don't understand when they come into a gentrified community how bad it was before it got gentrified. And the piece that I missed in 1994, I went to Atlanta. I came back from Atlanta. I was there for about a week and a half. I loved it. Came back from Atlanta, said, I'm moving to Atlanta. So for the next month, I sold as much as I could to save up. That Saturday, I turned my keys into my apartment where I was in DC and was gonna go party one last time on a Saturday night. My 78 Cadillac broke down in somebody else's neighborhood.
Right.
So it broke down, we parked, and you said, so you mentioned that 8-block span from these neighborhoods, from the good houses to the ghetto per se. I was approximately 2 to 3 blocks out of my neighborhood. So that put me in a whole nother war zone.
Yeah.
Right.
My friend and I came around the corner. Some guys that we knew attempted to rob us. It was 12 midnight. And
Wow.
DC right now, 12 midnight, it's bright all over Northwest.
Yeah.
But at 12 midnight in 1994, it was Gotham City.
Right.
And this is pre-cameras, so it wasn't any cameras.
Right.
So these guys that were trying to rob us, they knew that they can do whatever they wanted to and get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
When my friend and I realized what was going on, we started to run. They started to shoot immediately. The bullet hit me in the back of my thigh and came out the front.
Wow.
I saw my whole life flash in front of me. I thought it was over. I said, oh, they got him. And we was accustomed to this.
Right.
You know, you talking about PTSD, we were accustomed to our friends dying. We were accustomed to our relatives dying through the crack war. So we just told everybody when we came out, just be careful. So I went to the hospital. The doctor was poking me with the needle, and he's like, you're paralyzed. Like, what do you mean, doc? I'm like, just wrap my leg up so I can get out of here. I'm gonna be all right. He said, no, do you feel that? He's poking the bottom of my foot. Like, you paralyzed, the bullet hit a nerve, and you'll never walk again.
Wow.
So he told me I would never walk again. At this time, I had my money saved up, and I thought that maybe I could still sell drugs while I was paralyzed.
Mm.
That lasted for about 2 weeks. I said, no, I can't do this. I just feel so vulnerable right now.
Yeah.
So this was before they had these different programs where they had the victim assistance program.
Right.
So within the next 3 or 4 months, I spent my money. My buddy who I was moving down to Atlanta, he said, Paul, come on down anyway. You got to get away from DC. It's too much negativity in DC. You need to get away. And at that time, it was terribly hard. It was like it was like an invisible force field that kept us staying in DC and not leaving out of the environment we were in.
Right.
So I left and went to Atlanta in 94, and I couldn't walk. I never went to any physical therapy, no more. I never went to any doctors because I was like, I don't trust the doctors. So what helped me is that the house I moved in, he grew up in Atlanta. His whole circle worked out a lot. So I would walk literally 8 miles a day on my crutches. And after about 2 years, I started feeling pain. So feeling pain was a good thing for somebody who's paralyzed.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was able to start walking again. But that didn't stop me from doing what I was doing. Now I'm angry because I got shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing more things. And luckily, I was never captured. So I don't have any felonies on my record or anything. So I was able to go through that. And that fast forwarded me back to when I came back to DC and my oldest son was on the way.
Yeah.
And that's when I transformed my life and went in that direction. But when I was working with the nonprofits and the government agencies, they helped a little, but it was just not enough being done for the black man.
Right.
We were pretty much like throwaway people. Like I recall sometimes when I worked my fatherhood program, and when I had the fatherhood program within this nonprofit, I also carried cases with mothers too and their families. So I remember we had a program where we would give furniture vouchers and grocery vouchers to our families. So I come in with the caseloads with the mothers, and my director would just say, oh, here you go, Paul. Give them this voucher right here. They can go with the furniture. So now, while I'm in the fatherhood program, I have a gentleman on my caseload, single father. I think the mother had passed, and he was raising 6 girls by himself.
Wow.
From 4 years old to 17 years old.
Wow.
They was like, Paul, we need you to go talk to him. Because the ladies that we sending in there, he's not really gravitating to them. So I went to his house with the caseworker, the young lady, and we had to wear kind of like casual clothes, khakis, a shirt, and a tie. So I'm in there talking to him, and a rope parachute from the ceiling. Fall on my tie. I knock it off my tie, step on it, and I keep on talking to him like it ain't nothing happened. He was like, he was in shock. But that piece right there sold him that I was for real and I come in to help him and help his family.
Wow.
So when I went to my director and I said, we need to get his house clean. We need to bring somebody to get his house clean, and we need to get him a furniture voucher so he can get some business for those girls. So the first thing my director told me is, Paul, doesn't he have a job? I said, yes, he has a job, but he has 6 girls that he raised.
Right.
And I said, last week when I came in here and asked you for a furniture voucher for the young lady that had 2 kids, you hurry up and gave it to him.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm dealing with a male that has 6 girls that needs help and wants help, you ask me, doesn't he have a job?
Right.
I'm like, I don't understand. Paul, you passive aggressive. I'm like,
what?
right, I'm like, I'm trying to make sure, like, how am I passive aggressive? Because
Right.
I want to help the man
Mm-hmm.
the same way I help the woman.
Same way.
She's like, yeah, Paul, you just too passive aggressive. You might need to get some therapy. I'm like, therapy? I said, what's that look like? So, well, you know, we have a program where you can get free therapy. You can go like 3 times a week. I'm like, I get 3 visits to the therapist. I said, do I still get paid for this? Yeah, you'll get paid. I said, I go see the therapist. So I go see the therapist, and the therapist they ask me, say, well, do you have anybody that you talk to? I said, yes, sir. I have like about 2 to 3 people that I talk to and value their opinion greatly. So he asked me what happened. I told him what happened. And I said, she called me passive aggressive. And the therapist said, well, you know, Mr. Jones, sometimes people call you things because they don't want to deal with you. If you say you had 3 people that you talk to, you don't have no tremendously bad habits, you're not stressing out or getting loud with people and yelling at them, I don't see anything wrong with you, but you welcome to come back here for your 2 more sessions if you like.
Yeah.
So I went back to work, and I tell people that story because the nonprofit and the social services field encourages men to get into the field. And I encourage them too.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to be clear that when you get in this field, you have to be ready to work, and you have to be able to take adversity, not only from the outside, but the inside too.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So when this opportunity came up, where I knew the building was in the process of being sold, I knew many of the people on the property because I grew up here. And like I told you, no matter what I did, I was always respectful. So couldn't nobody say anything bad about me. If I'm gambling, if somebody come and do we gambling, I'm stopping my gambling. We're going to help the ladies up the stairs with the bags. Then we're going to go back to doing what we're doing. If somebody come around, a lady or older person come by, people cursing, we going to calm down because we have respect
Right.
for our elders and our people on our property. So when it came to this position, this was an elected position.
Okay.
So I had to be elected in this position by the people on the property.
Right.
And first of all, they encouraged me to do it. And then they elected me in with flying colors. So I've been doing this with CHVTA since January 12, 2019.
Okay.
And it's been tremendous. We had the 25% partnership. What it allows us to do is to use our own money to help the residents on the property. And when you get, I call it behind the curtain, because when you get behind this curtain, you see how many forces are actually against the low income people.
Mm-hmm.
And people really don't realize the forces. We talking about the developers, we talking about the owners, we talking about the city council,
Right.
we talking about the mayor's office. These talking about these government agencies. We talking about the nonprofits. There's so many people that's against the low income people.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about mental health, but no one explains to low income people what exactly does mental health help look like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a misconception among low-income people that if you go see a psychiatrist or a therapist, you crazy.
Right.
And they just gonna tell you what to do. And there are no programs out here, from my knowledge, that actually explains to the regular person what getting therapy looks like.
Right.
Wow.
They say go get therapy. You need therapy, but nobody sits down and explains to them what therapy looks like. People think that you'll go see the psychiatrist 1 or 2 times and they'll tell you some magical answers, and then everything's solved.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's about.
Wow. Listen,
Right,
Paul, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to get back to what you're saying, but I want to talk about the importance of you guys making this more than what the city council and the mayor intended it to be.
Yeah.
So we're going to touch on that briefly. Listen, we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to be right back. Welcome back. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Listen, this is exciting. Paul hit on something. He's talking about where he is, and this idea of the tenants owning the community. It's a major thing, and it's something that the mayor, the city council, and everybody get behind, because see, it shines for Washington D.C. to have this model, this example of their, but I don't think the mayor or the city council really had any idea of what the details are. And I know that you and Cindy are constantly in meetings with them. I know y'all constantly at them to say, listen, we're not going to allow you guys to make this your pet project, so you can put it across the country and not do what you say you're going to do for the community.
Right.
You know, so I know you guys are constant. The mayor and the city council, they have been great, you know, in doing that. But for them, they had no idea of what they were really getting involved in, how much they had to stay involved to make this thing work. But it's not them making it work, because they're busy with the mayoring the city. They're busy counseling the city. Yeah. And how many times do they want to put a feather in their cap to say we're doing something for the Black community? Hey, look here, this is what we're doing. But you guys have stepped in and say, no, we're not going to let you just use us for an example. We're going to make this work. Yeah. And it's you guys that's making it work. Talk to us a little bit about how this has been working out with the city and their partnership in trying to help you guys to work this thing.
Well, it's been a rough battle. Let me tell you that. And that's what I say when you look behind the curtain, because you're correct. We are in numerous meetings with the city council members, people from the mayor's office, but they will never, or very rarely, speak about us in public. When the coronavirus hit, we worked harder. When the coronavirus hit, we put stuff in place on the property to ensure or decrease the spread of the coronavirus. I want to say since coronavirus hit last March of 2020, we might have had at the most 2 deaths out of 1,000 people.
That's beautiful.
Properties around us, they having 24, 30 deaths because of coronavirus. And what happens is, I don't know, when Corona first hit, it was like stay in the house. They say stay in the house. They tell the people to stay in the house, right? But they don't provide any services.
Yeah.
So now what you have is seniors or people with handicaps stuck in the house. Nobody's answering these calls that the news is coming on TV telling people to call, or you call and leave a message and they call you back 2 weeks later.
Right.
So what we did, so first of all, it's a couple things. We took care of our property first, but we're not the only people in our community that need help. But because of our situation, our funds that we have are only supposed to be used for our property. And we couldn't go against that. So what we did is we collaborated and we opened up MAM DC, which is Mutual Aid Movement DC. And what Mutual Aid Movement DC did and still doing, we provided food and cleaning supplies to mostly people in Ward 1, but anyone that got a hand on us, gave us a call, we were out. Ward 4, 5, 7, 8. If you got our number, you said we stuck in the house, we don't have any cleaning supplies, we can't find any bleach, we can't find any Lysol, we can't find this. We found it. We were out 2 o'clock in the morning making deliveries ourselves across town, around town, and it just didn't stop. And
still doing this, right?
We're still doing it right now. We have a distribution, I want to say at least 2 times a week. We've probably given out, I want to say at least 500,000 pounds of fresh produce.
Wow.
Since COVID hit. Beautiful. And we've made some great partnerships with different food vendors, different companies, and we're doing this mostly on our own. We have I think we received the grant from DC, and they publicized this grant that we received it, 29,000, probably sometime back in October. We getting calls from our partners, hey, congratulations on the grant, congratulations on the grant. We still haven't gotten the money.
Wow.
And it's like and that's the trick to it.
Yeah.
They go on TV and they say these things, but when it comes back to the neighborhood, it's not really happening. So we want the mayor's office and the city council office to recognize us more, to talk about us more, and to help us more.
Exactly.
As of right now, we get little to no help at all right now from the city. We have a lot of meetings, and that's why I keep saying behind the curtain, because when you sit in these meetings, the plans that they come up with has no logic base in it at all. And I'm like, you're the professional. How come you can't see that your plan is not going to work?
Not going to work.
Right.
And you'll be surprised. You're like, really? Is this what's going on? But when they have these press conferences and these open forums, they talk so eloquently, and you think they're doing this and they're doing this. But when you go deep in those meetings where the camera's not at, it's like they're doing little or nothing.
Right.
And they keep us busy. We stay busy all the time. We had DC government social workers and government officials referring people to us for help during COVID.
Right.
That's crazy. You go to the government and the government referred you to our small nonprofit that we just opened up at the start of COVID.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Hey, look, y'all, check this out. You're going to see right down on your screen, you're going to see it there, ma'am. You're going to have the information there. Look at that information. Look, not only look at that information, there's website information that you can go and you can give.
You can contribute.
Listen, Paul is very, he's puts it plain. And when he puts it plain, he don't even tell y'all. He's telling you what some of what they're doing, but he's not telling y'all the real magnitude of it is because ma'am partnered with people all around the city, not just that. They partnered and fed people through COVID-19.
The entire
These guys fed people in COVID-19. They took groceries out. These guys created a store, coming into a grocery store to get this stuff, and they're not coming there to shop with their money. They're coming to get products and things that these guys have went out and worked hard to collect to provide for people. And this store that they came up with is to remove the guilt and the shame for needing.
Exactly.
This is craziness, but it is working. It has fed the community, and they've done a wonderful job through COVID-19. And the proper credits where they do, God will give it to them, and God will make it known what they're doing.
Yes, he will.
And it won't be hidden what they're doing and who actually was on the ground doing the work. And these guys were part of that group that was literally doing the work. They all put themselves at risk for contracting COVID. We're talking about before the vaccine. We're talking about Cindy and Paul and them up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, getting to the grocery stores and getting in line to shop for people to get stuff so that they can give to people. And as you hear, the government will say they're giving money, but they're not giving money. These guys straight, and then because they felt a need, and they're giving back to the community. This is important. So listen, from all across the world, wherever you are, look at that information, go to that information, look them up. They're doing good work, and give to that organization.
Absolutely.
Give to that organization. This is a great time after coming out of Juneteenth and everything. We got to support our own community.
Take care of ourselves.
We have to take care of ourselves because as Juneteenth representative, ain't nobody gonna tell you nothing. Until they're forced to. Won't nobody do anything for you until they're forced to. The same way Juneteenth came about is they were forced to tell the black people that they were free. And liberation came. It's the same way. Until they're forced to do something, they're never going to do it. They'll talk big and do all that stuff. We need you in our community to give. We need you across the world. We need you to give to this cause because it's doing good. It's working. And if it's working here, guess what? It'll work in your community too. It is a good example. It can work in your community too. How about you reach out and find out how in your country or in your state that you can do this with your community that's being gentrified and the property's being taken over. Listen, your voice won't be heard unless you put it there. Unless you say it out. So Paul and them are doing some great things. Listen, we are only scratching the surface of this stuff. Paul has got so much, especially because of his passion. You see where his passion is because he grew up in this earth. He brought his children up around this. And it's a great example for his sons to see him going back and giving back. That's legacy.
It's legacy.
That's legacy. That's holding on to a part of your heritage that's important. And how much more important it is to hold on to my heritage that I have here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. You can't just put us out and shut us down. That just don't happen. We got to be forceful in getting back in there, but we have to do it the right way. We have to be prepared to be business-like. We have to be prepared to create opportunities for ourselves. And then making those opportunities work is not always easy work because you walk into a $99 million complex doesn't mean it's going to be easy because you think the money is there. There are forces against you. When you raise your voice, they'll say, we'll give you an opportunity only to see you fail at it, to say, we did it. And then you fail. But I got to tell you, these guys refuse to let go. They refuse to fail. And from what they're doing, they're creating and they're birthing more opportunities. From what he started, man was birthed. to feed not only their community, but to reach out and begin to expand to every community across DC. I'm trying to tell y'all, they are doing great work. Paul, thank you, man.
They have a hotline.
Thank you for what y'all doing. They have a hotline. All the information is there. From this point, we're going to leave the information up there unless we switch screens, because it's important that you go. It's important that you give and support this cause, because it is a good cause. If it works there, then the reason why you want to support it, because if it works there, it can work for you too.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we never know when we may be that person who needs
you never know when you're going to need the hotline. So while you're doing good, it don't take much. Listen, you're going to blow $5 or $10 at Starbucks.
Right.
You're going to blow $5 or $10 just to get that little drink and stuff that you want. How about just saying, hey, look, I'm going to help a community.
Yes.
Your $5 or $10 that you give, put together with everybody else's money, will help a community. You can feel good about yourself simply because you poured into something that's working.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you know it's working. Your money be planted in good ground if you sow it. Now, I'm not limiting you $5 or $10.
You can do 5 or 10,000.
I'm not listening to this. I'm not limiting you there, because some millionaires listening to us right now. Somebody was wondering what to do with $100,000 that they got to give away this year because they didn't give it away at COVID.
Yes.
And they got it sitting there, and you wondering what to do with it. Well, I'm trying to tell you what you can do with your money. You can send it to MAM on this good ground, and it's going to get out there. So the reason why, hold up, Mr. Millionaire, don't turn that station yet. You turned there because God wants you to hear where the money should come to and where it should go. Look, you see it on the screen, MAM DC. You don't have to just give your money. Go check it out and see what they're doing. So do that.
Right.
And the thing that's still very impressive to me is that MAM DC not only takes care of groceries. They go to the store, they shop, buy the groceries for the city, but they also prepare food, prepare sandwiches, and take it to the homeless in the middle of COVID. Because when it hit, a lot of the places that people who are homeless were used to going to shut down.
Yes, yes.
They had no recourse.
Right.
MAM DC is out there on the streets with sandwiches, handing out sandwiches and bottled water to homeless people. So if you have money, please go to the MAM DC. They have a GoFundMe page to go to that and contribute, because they are COVID. We're coming out of COVID now, but people are still in need.
Well, they say we're coming out of COVID. There's been an inequity in our communities either way. So we were behind before COVID.
Yes.
And the city, the state, and everybody else, Congress and everybody else saying that this is over, and they're cutting programs.
Yes.
They're cutting funding, trying to tell you that it's over, but it's not over in our community. We still got to catch up with rent.
Yes.
We still got to catch up with bills and stuff that we lag behind because of COVID. We're still dealing with the inequity and the inequality within our economical system. So it's not over for us. And these communities and these like places like MAM and these organizations like MAM realized that they couldn't stop doing COVID. They couldn't shut it down because COVID is not over in this community. We're still feeling the effects, the after effects of it.
Absolutely.
And it's still going to take some groundwork. And the only way we're going to get this groundwork done is if you guys give. We're not talking about a community. We're talking about a nation. We're talking about a people. We're talking about being our own help.
Helping ourselves.
Helping ourselves. And when you got people willing to volunteer to be the arms and legs, I know these guys. I know Paul and I know Cindy. They're not making no money off this. They're not pocketing your money. They're not doing this. They were doing this before they start giving. They were taking from their own resources and doing this before you start giving. And now that the government stepped in, because at one point, quote unquote, COVID was so bad, and they're giving grants that they haven't paid out yet.
Haven't given the money to them yet.
You know what I'm saying? But yet they still expect you to operate. They still expect to announce you on the news like they some great part of it, and like they've done something. Well, send a check. I'll send a check.
You know, GoFundMe.
and hit it. Yeah, Miss Mayor, we don't care. You can send it through GoFundMe. However, city council, you can do what you have to do to get it to them, but get it there because we are still in need of it. We're announcing today that COVID might be coming to an end, but the inequity in our communities and the need, greater need, was created because of COVID. Yes, you gave us stimulus. That only stimulated what was there. By the time you gave it to us, we were already in debt.
Already in the red.
We were already in the red. We were already not eating except for what they gave us. And now that it's over, if we have to go back to paying the little things that we did on the moratorium, we're still behind. And I say we as a people, God has been good to us. We are not behind. God has been good to us. We have been blessed in our house, but it's only when the whole community can be blessed and come out together that we're all doing well. And if we stop now, believing that it's over, we're going to dig a hole for ourselves that we can't get out of. We're going to create more of emergency than it was when COVID was here. Because COVID has left a lasting imprint. For some people, it has taken their breath the same way it has taken the breath of our finances, the same way it's taken the breath of the services that we did not get and was not provided. It's not because we have been lazy. It's not because we're not trying to work. The majority of the people work, but it's not enough because, as you know, they haven't even raised minimum wage to $15 an hour. Yet we live in a city that's being gentrified. Why it's being gentrified, the grocery stores charge way more for food than we can afford in our community. And if we don't have these supplements, we're going to fail. And if we fail, then our communities are gone. They're moving into our communities simply because the great inequity that lies there in. So I'm telling y'all, give. That's my little give speech right there. And why you should give, because these people are doing some good work. Paul, listen, go ahead. I want to give you the last closing words, but I do need you to know that we're getting ready to do another show.
We're gonna have
because we only touched the surface, and I want to get you and Cindy together because nobody knows the power that you guys are having and what y'all doing like you guys are doing. So we're going to do another show, and we're going to do another show with both of y'all. Matter of fact, we're going to get a couple of shows in because we have another show with Cindy coming up, and then we're going to have a show with y'all together, and then we're going to have another show with you.
Right.
Because
we want to keep this before the people.
We want to keep this
know about what's going on. We want people to continue to contribute.
Yes, and to those that we did not say Happy Father's Day to on last week, we want to say Happy Father's Day. What a great show to say Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you too.
Exactly.
Hey, listen, I am so proud of you as a black man. I'm so proud of you, what you have done and what you're doing for your sons. You know, at some point we got to stop thinking about ourselves.
Right.
We have to think about the next generation. What do we leave to them? The way we live and how we choose to live is affecting somebody.
Absolutely.
Right.
And also, it's affecting that little boy that's been looking at you. It's affecting that young man as he walk into manhood, as he reflect on who my daddy is and what was my daddy's principles. What did he sacrifice for? You know what I'm saying? And what is he doing for the community? And that leaves legacy.
Yes, it does.
That leaves legacy, man. We are so proud. So we want to give you the closing words here, and then don't worry about it. Just close out with whatever statements and stuff you want to make to the people and everything, because we're going to do another show. We're coming back to do another show with you, man, because what you're doing is great.
Well, I just want to close out and saying thank you all for having me here and providing this stage for us to have a dialogue about the different things that's needed in the different communities across the cities. Not just DC, but mostly all urban communities need these type of resources and different MAM DC type of organizations. I implore that your followers to check me out at Jones Connection 14 on Instagram. You can find some pictures and some videos of a lot of work that MAM DC and CHBTA is doing out in the streets and in our community, and just help your neighbors out. Help. I mean, that's all we can do is help our neighbors. And what I think the best thing that we have to learn as a people is that we have to work together. We can't like look at a person and make it a competition. Like when we do this work, we find that other organizations be in competition with each other. We're not in competition with you. If you need some help, we're gonna ask you if you need some help. We're not gonna try to get what you're getting. We're gonna help you get what you need to get, because that's what we're all about. And that's what makes our work so important, is that we don't have an ego, whereas we're doing this, we're doing this. I just talked to a resident on our property today that she's the first person on our property to pass the bar. And I was talking to her, and I was like, you're like a rose that grew from the concrete.
Yeah.
With all this stuff going on, you was able to pass the bar. Yeah. Not on your second or your third or your fourth time, but on your first time, you passed the bar. And in the 70% percentile of the class. I'm like, that's amazing. Yeah. And those things should be celebrated. And we have to celebrate our people and their successes.
Absolutely.
And like she said, when she said, well, Mr. Paul, I didn't even know you was the president, because you don't walk around here like you some bigger person or act like you kept putting on airs, as they said back in the day. You walk by here and you speaking to everybody know you, and don't nobody know what your position is, because you've been doing this same work for the last 20 years before you was the president.
Yeah.
So all I can say is help out, and help out. And especially with the fathers out there, if you want to help your kids and you want to help your family, the first person you have to help is the person in the mirror. You can't help anybody else if you don't help that person in the mirror. Right. And what that means is that if you doing something, if you smoking cigarettes or drinking a lot of beer or using drugs, I know it's hard to stop, but make an effort to slow down so you can go to a stop. You can't tell your kids to do this and don't do this and don't do that if they see you doing everything you're telling them not to do.
So true.
So
right.
To the fathers and the mothers, we have to learn to lead by example.
By example.
And thank y'all again. Check me out at Jones Connection 14 on Instagram. There's a lot of good footage about the stuff that we're doing. I'm constantly adding. Look out for Jones Connection on YouTube coming probably in the next 2 weeks. Beautiful. I want to put this interview on there also.
Yes.
So thank y'all again for having me on.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Listen, as I said, there's much more to come.
Absolutely.
And when we say we spotlight from different areas. No matter where you are around this world, you can reach out to us. We can find a way. Language is not a barrier. We'll find a way to get through the language barrier, and we can spotlight what you do. But remember, every good deed that's done in one place can be duplicated in another.
Absolutely.
So it has nothing to do with region. It has nothing to do with location. It has everything to do with people working together and passion. The same passion that can work in D.C. will work in Ghana. Will work in England, will work in other places. But more than that, a great spirit. A great spirit and love works across the world, because love is the thing that gives us the passion for what we do. You cannot do this type of work without loving people.
Absolutely.
Right.
In order to love people, learn to love yourself. Know who you are, no matter what your race is, no matter what your culture is. Again, love yourself. If you love yourself, then you will love everybody else. And if you love everybody else, then you can enjoy your own culture, but you will also be open to experience new culture. So that will break down the barriers between all of us, and we can love one another around the world. So we want to say thank you so much, and please join us next week when we come back on next Monday. Listen, Chris, what should they do?
They should continue to make this their season to live out.
Be authentically you.
Listen, the question on the table is, how will you leave your imprint in this world? Thank y'all so much for being with us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Be authentically you. now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world? Be authentically you. 'Cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world?